What is up, everybody? Welcome to this Trainwreck Sports Podcast, where we are here to bay the Bills. Brought to you by Outlet Liquor, your place to buy a case. And I'm sure there were some Bills fans going to buy some cases after their experience last night. It's a Friday night. Mike Bunt is here to join me as we are, what are we at, 14 minutes now away from round 2, and the Buffalo Bills have not yet made a selection, Mike.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, last night, absolutely wild. 4 hours of watching the draft, only to trade back twice. I know fans were up in their emotions. They were upset about Kansas City getting Worthy and then the fan favorite Leggett being gone. But you know what? Today, we're going to have a lot of picks to talk about, and I cannot wait to see who the newest members of the Buffalo Bills are tonight.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. So let's get right into it. Last night, I was out and about, and you were gonna come live here with a reaction. You were locked and loaded, I'm sure, just waiting with bated breath, probably hoping that it would happen a little earlier, maybe a trade up sometime into the teens, about 10:30 Eastern or 10 Eastern, whatever. As it kept going on, we get to 28 finally. And I'm like, all right, here we go. We've been waiting all night. There's all these receivers here that we can still, Cooper DeJean's still here. Like, there's a lot of options there. And then the trade happens. The first trade to the Kansas City Chiefs. What was your initial reaction? Mine was, you can still go to my feed right now. It was pure anger. Was very upset, mostly because I love Xavier Worthy and I hate the Kansas City Chiefs. It was emotional. I'm a little calmed down today. You've helped me with that. Other people, I've seen some rational takes, got better with it. But what was your reaction right away?
So I wasn't actually mad. I was a little bummed because once Brian Thomas Jr. was off the board, I was like, okay, let's go get Xavier Worthy, because I'm an A.D. Mitchell guy, but for the last couple of weeks, I've kind of gotten to the acceptance that he wasn't going to be taken at 28. So I was like, okay, let's get Xavier Worthy. This is going to be exciting. Then they trade down. It's Kansas City, and you're like, you knew they were taking Worthy. So, but you still had pick 32. I figured maybe there was somebody else on the board. I thought maybe they want Leggett. They're right in front of Carolina. Carolina was the team that was rumored to be all in on Leggett. So then they trade down again, and I'm just like, you know what? Whatever. At this point, they must have a guy that they know is going to be available in the mid-30s. They feel safe about it, and you get a third-round pick in the process. You move up in the 5th round as well. I know it's annoying, but you only really move down 5 spots to move up quite a bit later in the draft. I'm okay with it. It's more emotionally the weight that hurts more than what they're missing out on, because I think they're going to end up with the same player right now at 33 that they were probably targeting at 28.
Yeah, that's a great point to remember about this, is like, they're not, if they loved somebody at 28, they're just sticking and picking at that point. Like, it's nice. Meanwhile, the trade that they made with the Chiefs was great value. To get a 3rd-round pick, that was clearly another day 2 pick, was clearly something that Bean wanted to prioritize, and getting that pick at 95 is huge for building out this roster that, while wide receiver is the most glaring hole, there are still other holes in other positions that they can address. Or that's where the second wide receiver is going to come in. Everybody's, wants multiple options at wide receiver. Now they have that ability to do that. It was definitely just seeing, when you were watching it, if you were just watching the TV and seeing the pick change and seeing it be Kansas City, like that visceral reaction to that, of all teams. I said, I texted people right after. I was like, this is the only scenario that could have pissed me off, like, in this moment, is them trading back. Okay, fine. Not that mad about it. But to Kansas City, and for Kansas City to get a guy like Xavier Worthy. Now, who knows what he ends up like, right? Like, it remains to be seen. Like, we'll see what happens when the pads come out and everything. Worthy feels like a great fit for their offense, but as a lot of people have made a lot of great points today, it's not like the Chiefs have done a great job at selecting wide receivers in the draft in the last couple of years. For, Rashee Rice was a pretty good, pretty good player on the field last year for them, but there's Sky Moore, there's other examples of guys that didn't end up panning out for them. So maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe the Bills look like geniuses because they still get the guy they want at 33, but in the moment, it was ridiculous to see. And it was a lot of reaction. I was definitely aiding into that reaction, a lot of emotional reactions. And that's where we're at. That's where we're at with this fan base right now. And like the point we're at with this build and with Josh Allen is everything is it feels like this was such an important draft. And now we're going to be no matter what, we're going to be comparing. If it's a receiver here in the next, as I have it on my screen, 9 minutes at 33, Bills fans are comparing that receiver to Xavier Worthy for the next at least 5 years, right? Like that's what we're going to look at this point. I think that's the thing that we weren't really considering.
Yeah, we weren't anticipating that happening.
Yeah.
So it's definitely frustrating, especially when we're the team that gave Kansas City the ability to draft Patrick Mahomes. Mm-hmm. Now if Worthy works out in KC, it's just another player that we fed this evil dynasty. It's scary. I get it. We used to be afraid of feeding the Patriots. Now we're afraid of feeding the Kansas City Chiefs. The thing about it, though, is you can't live in fear. The Chiefs are going to be what the Chiefs are going to be. And if Xavier Worthy is the player that wins them a Super Bowl, so be it. But the Bills have to worry about themselves first and foremost. Just because the Chiefs have been great for years doesn't mean you're going to play them every year in the playoffs. You have Maniac. What's going on?
What just happened? I just clicked in and I'm already in the show. What the hell is going on?
Automatic.
I'm live at a meat raffle in South Buffalo. I just had to tune in and I had to say one thing and one thing only. If anything happens but the addition of a player to the Bills roster in the next 30 minutes, there will be legitimately blood in the water here in South Buffalo. So I'll see you boys in a little bit.
All right,
awesome,
talk soon.
Maniac. Thanks for joining. That's great. You never know what's going to happen during the middle of a live stream. And Maniac, I guess he didn't even mean to be on right away, but
yeah,
good point. Like if they trade back again, Buffalo's just the city of Buffalo and the people here are just going to freak the heck out.
Yeah, man. That's the Twitter could be ablaze in the next 10 minutes for all we know. There's a lot of possibilities. So let's talk about who you want to see here at 33. I assume that you want them to stay at 33. Or are you in favor of a trade back if the position's right? I know there was some rumors about
what the board looks like. So I'm actually okay with another trade back. See, if they're cool with Franklin, Mitchell, Coleman, McConkey, I'd be okay going back down to like 37, 38, 39, maybe getting another day 2 pick late in the 3rd round and just continuing to add on top of it. Because we know this is a young team that lacks depth at certain positions, and I'd be fine with adding a little bit more on top of it. But if they're sold on one guy and they're worried about that player dropping, then you have to make the pick. Now, speculating right now, who could the pick be at 33? I know there's some people that thought, well, maybe the Bills would trade for a Deebo Samuel or a Brandon Ayuk or T. Higgins. That doesn't seem to be in the cards right now based on all the latest reports. It seems like the speculation is down to Keon Coleman and A.D. Mitchell. Now, you know me. I have been all about Adonai Mitchell this entire draft process. I think you've been high on him too. And it's honestly been astonishing to me that so many Bills fans have been against him because of perceived attitude problems and taking routes off. I'll tell you what, in college, sometimes they coach you to take routes off. They want you to conserve energy because a lot of college is matchup related where they already know where they're throwing the ball before they even snap it. There's a lot of college football is a lot different than the NFL in that regard. So you can't just look at a guy taking off a route and saying, oh, what a bum. Like that's coached into a lot of these college teams. Number 2, the attitude stuff. We don't know what is true, what's not true. The diabetes stuff, definitely a concern, but he'll be in an NFL organization that can professionally handle that. I'm going to trust that they can keep that under wraps and make sure that he's the best version of himself. I like Adonai Mitchell. He is the highest upside of all of the guys remaining in this draft. He was deserving of even going late in the 1st round, 4.34 speed in the 40. 6'2", played 5 college football playoff games, caught a touchdown in each of them, I believe, tore up teams like Alabama, Ohio State in the playoffs. Like, this is a guy that's next level. Now, Keon Coleman, I'm okay with him too. I thought he got so much hate towards the end of the college football season and combine process. We're talking about a guy that was considered a consensus top 20 pick heading into the college football season last year. And then suddenly people are talking like, oh, it's a bad pick if you take him in the middle of the second round. Like, yeah, his 40 time wasn't great. 4.61. But in the gauntlet drill, where you're a straight line, you're catching footballs from each side, he topped out at 20 plus miles per hour. He was the fastest player at the combine that did that. Straight line speed. Troy Franklin, who's much faster, 4.41, weaving in and out, topped out around 16 miles per hour. In the NFL, the gauntlet drill is going to be more of a indicator of what you're going to do, speed on the field, than the combine. So I think both of these guys deserving. I heard a comparison about Keon Coleman being like Gabe Davis. I think that's way too much of an exaggeration. Yeah. Maybe he's not going to be one of the top end guys, but Keon Coleman has a bright future in the NFL. I think A.D. Mitchell has a potentially bright future in the NFL. I like Troy Franklin. If he ends up being the pick, even Ladd McConkey, if they go Ladd McConkey, I'll be fine with him. And because of his speed, his ability to get open, I'm a little concerned about the slot situation, having 3 guys that can play in the slot. I don't know if he'll be the 4th. And then the last thing I'll say, the 2 defensive players in consideration, Cooper DeJean. I like him, but the Bills' track record is they can make anything out of safety. They can have 5th rounders come in and play safety. They can put almost anybody at corner safety and get instant decent production. So I don't know if you need to use pick 33 on that. And then for Newton from Illinois, the D tackle, another interesting guy, high level, but you already have an Ed Oliver. Never hurts to have 2 guys like that, but I feel like wide receiver is a more pressing concern. So give me A.D. Mitchell, but all these guys, very, very good options at pick 33.
A great point about Johnny Newton is one of the knocks on him was that he kind of got engulfed in the run game in college, and that's not that's an issue that we've heard not all the time with Ed Oliver, but he's struggled when he doesn't have one of those guys next to him in the run game as well. That's not. I don't think you want to duplicate that problem. I love the idea of picking big guys. Don't get me wrong. Jim Harbaugh last night said we look at offensive linemen as weapons. That was music to my ears. I'm like, you're damn right, Jim. Offensive linemen are the weapons. But in this case, I'm with you about that. Coop, they don't need to make that move right now. Like, I feel like that would just be like, it just doesn't feel like it's the time, and it's not as glaring of a need, especially even at safety, because there are good safeties that they can get available that are going to be available later on that they could get. There's still other free agents that they could go get with the $10 million they're going to get from Trey White on June 1st. Justin Simmons still has not signed anywhere. Not that he's going to I think he's going to be a target for the Bills, but there are still guys that they can address that position with, and it's not as high of a need as his receiver. You mentioned Keon Coleman in the gauntlet. You know who did great in that gauntlet drill last year? Puka Nacua. Imagine if you're getting a guy that could do that. Like something, not saying Keon Coleman's going to be Puka Nacua, but it's just discounting the guy so much from a 40. I don't understand how 40 time, like, it's nice to see people run really fast, and it's cool to see, like, Xavier Worthy running one of the fastest 40s ever. Like, that's always fun to see at the combine. It does not mean it translates to success in the NFL. John Ross was super fast. That dude did not have success.
So obsessed with it because of guys like Tyreek Hill, and then we forget there's all these speed guys that turn into nothing. You got to still be a receiver. Speed doesn't mean that you're a good receiver, and that's why, like, I get a little upset with how fans keep talking about these receivers and their pros and cons. It's like, first of all, you look at what the Bills have. They have 2 guys that are good slot options already. And then you add Dalton Kincaid as a tight end who's good in the slot. So you really, I know there's this thought, positionless football, just get a bunch of good guys out there and Josh will make them work. I get that. But you do need a boundary receiver. And they don't currently have one.
Yep.
So unless they're going to somehow make some great free agent addition that I don't know who's out there that would really upgrade that for them, or make a trade, which it doesn't seem like they're willing to really give up the asset or really pay what they need to pay to make an Ayuk or an Higgins or Deebo Samuel happen, then you're going to have to draft somebody. So I think that's why we're talking Keon Coleman, AD Mitchell now, because I think the Bills realize like that is a glaring need. Like you need somebody to where you can throw the ball up and they can make a play. It's just frustrating for me at times because last year we were putting down the slot guys that were solid receivers in the draft. Now this year we're putting down some of these outside guys, and they all have pros and cons. Yep. I just wish that we would address everybody equally. When it came to Xavier Legette, everybody was just talking all the positives about him, but then they weren't talking about how it took him 5 years to break out in college, that he was older than the entire class, and that there's some concerns. Why didn't you produce the first 4 years of your college career? A lot of these other guys are coming out after their junior year and outperformed Xavier Legette his first 4 years of college. So a guy like Legette, why aren't we talking about any of the negatives with him? A guy like McConkey, why aren't we talking about how he struggles sometimes against press coverage, or that because of his size, he probably will start out as a slot receiver in the NFL? There's questions about how he can be outside. Yes, there's some people that think it won't be too much of a difficult transition to the NFL, but there are questions. But all you hear about AD Mitchell and Keon Coleman is everything bad with them, but not all the things that they're great at. Keon Coleman is a reliable target who was solid at Michigan State before transferring to Florida State. He is big and strong. He's a good with catching the ball, making plays.
Yep.
At Florida State, they used him as an explosive athlete. So even though he was a 4.6, they used him for yards after the catch. He played basketball, I believe, as well. So he's athletic. Like the testing doesn't really tell you how good of an athlete he is. It was crazy because the analytics showed his game athleticism was far superior to his testing athleticism, and his game athleticism was actually amongst the best in this class. Yep. And then with AD Mitchell, the same thing, like, the opposite thing where his testing was better than his game athleticism. But like the reason why you're drafting in the first round, early second, is to get guys with the highest max potential. You're going after the highest ceilings. If you want a safe floor, you want a guaranteed good player, good floor, use that in the third round. Go in the fourth round after guys that their tape is good, but they don't have the traits. First and second round, it's about trying to get the best player possible. We're not trying to make the playoffs here in Buffalo. We're trying to win Super Bowls. Yep. So let's get the players that have the maximum ceiling. And I feel like too many fans are just content with going after these guys with just average ceilings because they know they're safer or because they're already more developed. NFL coaches don't care how developed you are. They believe they can develop you. So I think there's a little bit of a flaw in the thinking of many fans when it comes to these prospects.
I agree, man. It's these biases start up over the process, and there's people are obviously going to hold some people's opinions higher than others, and you start hearing any knocks on it, and it's like, okay, I'm just done with that guy. And then it's really hard to like I feel like a lot of fans, they take a guy out, put them out of their mind, and they're like, I don't want to consider him. And then it's like hard to build them back up. And as you're saying, the other way around, like if they fall in love with a guy, it's really hard to like present the other side of that to fans who are already in love with a certain player, certain guy, whatever. And yeah, like McConkey has been a guy that's been talked about a ton by Bills fans, by Bills content creators, everything else. And like you said, there's as much of worthy knocks to him as there is Coleman or a guy like Mitchell. But I feel like the comparison hasn't been the same because you're looking at exactly what you're saying, the consistency of it.
And look how long we've been already with those.
Yeah.
Like so many people were all on the Legette or bust train. And then the Bills have two opportunities to get Xavier Legette. And they're like, nah, we good.
Yeah.
we're good. You can take him, Carolina. We know you're taking him. Just take him at 32 and we'll move on. Like that's the thing. And if they don't take McConkey here, say they take Keon Coleman or an AD Mitchell, that means we would have spent the last 100 days basically knocking these two prospects within the Bills fan base, assuming that they're not the right picks, only to be wrong. So like that's the thing that kind of gets to me the most is a lot of the Bills fan base has been knocking a lot of these receivers that actually might be the guys that Brandon Beane targets, while praising these other guys that apparently the Bills didn't feel the same way that the fan base did. So I've always kind of had the belief in this class. We've been talking about it being one of the deepest classes in NFL history.
Yep.
Well, if it's truly one of the deepest classes in NFL history, why are we falling in love with one or two guys? There's 7 or 8 guys that would be perfectly fine. And I think we're even at the point right now where there's still 5 receivers on the board where I'm perfectly fine if the Bills take them between 33 to 50, depending on if they trade back, trade up, whatever they want to do.
The better receiver might be the guy they get in the 4th round tomorrow, for all we know, too. Like, that's how deep this class is. There's going to be guys that go, like, is there a world where Luke McCaffrey is one of the better receivers in this class? That's a guy who's projected in the 4th and 5th round. But I feel like there's, people get so sure about these, especially receivers. Like, receiver, I feel like, is a really hard, and this is maybe like from year to year, it's a hard thing to project on what their exact impact is, because so much is dependent on scheme and situation and quarterback. And that's why I feel good about whatever receiver the Bills take. If they feel strongly about it, Josh Allen's going to make it work. Josh Allen's made a lot of receivers, work out in his career. There's been a lot of guys who have come through Buffalo and had their best years of their career. Like we've seen with Diggs, with Beasley, with Brown, with Shakir coming out and having a great year last year, like Kincaid. Like these are all guys who have been effective once they get on the field with Josh Allen. So that's why I feel confident in it. And it's like, as you're saying, like this class is so deep that there has to be a trait or something that Beane is that they early on in this process, they located something exactly that they wanted to look at and point out with these guys. And there's probably 2 or 3 guys there that fit that mold. And if they're still there right now, then this is worked out right in their hands. Like Beane is probably sitting there like, oh man, this is falling. You probably saw Ricky Persson out like, yeah, take Ricky, take Leggett. All right, we have another run in here today. We are going to be, I'm going to be outnumbered by a couple mics as Mike Partham is here. Mike, just in time we got some kids up on stage. The draft's about to start in a second. How did you feel last night from the Bills trades back? Were you excited? Were you upset? And how do you feel today after sitting with it for the day?
Peeved, annoyed, like we wasted 4 hours of our lives.
Well, that's
like big baller Brandon Beane couldn't give us a little bit of a teensy hint, a heads up, a little inside information here, a coded message of some sort. Like, hey, just get an early sleep. We'll talk about it tomorrow in day 2 or something. I don't know. I mean, yes, I am annoyed that we traded with Kansas City. Yes, I am annoyed that they took a receiver. Yes, I am annoyed that Carolina took a receiver. I mean, what do they know that we don't? Or what do we know that they don't? Or what do they know that we don't? I don't know. If Xavier Worthy turns out to be, obviously he's a speedster guy, and we know from history that speedster guys don't necessarily make the best receivers. Al Davis taught me that back in the 90s by taking guys like, Rocket Ismail or signing, last year's Super Bowl MVP or like Desmond Howard or something like that. So history, if calmness and rationalness are your best friends in that case. But last night was not a night for calmness and rationalness. If you remember the fact that we literally handed the Chiefs Patrick Mahomes on a silver platter, and now we're handing him the fastest guy ever in receiver history on another silver platter.
To be fair, though, did you see he's actually one of the worst rated deep threats
I saw that
among the top tier receivers.
So,
yeah.
As I said in our group text chat, it's probably a good idea to start, digging up everything we can about these guys in particular that might discredit them and say that they're not what they're cracked up to be, or maybe that the Chiefs reach for them or whatever. Give me all the copium that is out there that is credible. You know what I mean?
What I want whoever Brandon Beane selects at 33, assuming he keeps the pick. I want Brandon Beane.
Yeah.
I want Brandon Beane to say something like, well, we only had 21 first-round grades, and we somehow managed to get one of our first round grades at pick 33, even though we traded back twice. I would love Brandon Beane to say something like that just to get a laugh, but I'm assuming he won't because it's blatantly obvious that if the Bills had any first round grade receivers remaining, they would have selected one of them at 28 or 32. So clearly, whoever the Bills select right now is a second round grade for them going forward.
What do you think's more likely? Do you think it's more likely that they knew they knew Carolina wanted Leggett, they knew that KC wanted Worthy, and they knew that? Do you think that they had intel on who the teams behind them wanted, or do you think that it was we have a group of guys that we're comfortable with, and so we're willing to take the chance?
Directly from those teams, I just figured they had a good feeling about it. I think didn't Beane say that he didn't have an idea what those teams were maybe.
Okay. Did he say that?
Pick?
I mean,
but he had to have a good idea at least.
He had to have had. He had to have known. Yeah, maybe not 100%, but the speculation would have been 100% Kansas City taking Xavier Worthy.
For sure.
There was really no one else that fit the profile of what does Kansas City want. They want speed. They lost Tyreek Hill. You get that with Worthy. And then I think Carolina, that was blatantly obvious because Xavier Leggett had come out and said Carolina told him they were going to take him at pick 33 if he was still on the board. So
here's what I want to ask. People are saying, well, if we didn't trade with Kansas City, they were going to take him anyway at 32. Well, if they were going to take him anyway at 32, then why would Kansas City feel it necessary to trade up a few spots? What were they afraid of?
Well, San Fran took Pearsall, right? So maybe Kansas City was afraid that San Fran or someone else was in on Worthy and that they needed to make the move in order to secure. And let's be real, Kansas City didn't really give up much. They swapped the fourth and our third. So, giving us a third for the fourth. So Kansas City really didn't have to do basically anything to move up 4 spots and just secure that they got Worthy. So ultimately, probably just better safe than sorry for them.
Yeah. It's a great point.
But we're forever going to be tied to Xavier Worthy, whatever he is for Kansas City.
That's what we were talking about before you hopped on too. Now, whoever the Bills pick, Bills fans are just going to be comparing those stats to Xavier Worthy, depending on how it goes from here on out. What were you going to say, Mike? Sorry.
No, it's just Bills on the clock right now. I don't know how much time is shown on your TVs. I'm at 4:20 right now. Are you guys around?
4 minutes on the mark right now.
Okay, so I'm about 20 seconds behind you guys. So when we get to that point, try to just hold any reaction, try to pause, and then just let it all out.
I think we're in the same space, Mike. So Parthy, you're the one, you're leading the charge here.
We gotta have some maturity right now, some holding it in. I know it's
gonna save the spoiler. Looks like I can tell you you're about to see some handshakes going around in the Bills war room.
So let's make our picks. Let's make our picks before anything gets out on Twitter and stuff like that. Jake, you go first. Who are the Bills taking?
I think it's A.D. Mitchell. I think that's who they wanted the whole time.
I think that's a safe bet.
You think A.D. Mitchell too? Dude, I'm so torn because I've seen all this Keon Coleman stuff. I told you a couple weeks ago, Jake, that I thought
who's that safety that's also been going around? Cooper DeJean.
I'm gonna go. Oh God, I'm gonna say Keon Coleman. I don't like that I'm saying Keon Coleman. I'll say this. I told you a couple weeks ago, Jake, that I thought it was the Bills that leaked that story about A.D. Mitchell and the diabetes and the attitude. If they end up taking him here, then we will know that it probably was them who wanted him to drop.
It's a great call. That's a great point.
If they take Cooper DeJean, do we expect them to trade up in a few picks to go get one of the remaining wide receivers?
I would think so. I think that if they pick DeJean here, that they're back in by 40 to get one of the other guys. Because I think New England's gonna pick a receiver after this for sure. They're taking somebody after this. And I think other teams, from what we heard today, Rappaport saying that it was a lot of teams calling up, not just to the Bills to trade up for guys, but even behind the Bills looking for places too. So I would imagine the Bills would be quick to get on there if they don't take a receiver here.
So we'll just have to like I said, once he gets up to the podium, just hold your emotion for 20 seconds.
I got you.
God, I'm nervous right now because, just knowing who they take and how the fan base is going to react to it. Like, I can already predict how Bills fans are going to react depending on who the pick is right now.
Yep.
And there's every single person, there is a negative and there is a positive to it.
Well, really, if they go with Cooper DeJean, then there's going to be a few
there's going to be
more
mad Bills fans
grown-worthy
in that
tweets
scenario
out there. And as the next few picks come in, like if New England takes a receiver, regardless if it's A.D. Mitchell or what was his name, as the receivers start to come off the board, if the Bills don't pick a receiver, then it's just going to get amplified and amplified. What are you doing? What are you doing? Here we go on my end.
All right,
Oh,
this is where Mike just silence.
I might have to just close my eyes, not look at Mike. I'm just gonna block him out.
I'm going to turn down the TV a little bit.
Oh God! All right,
look at that guy. He's got the Bills shaved into his head.
Hey, it's Aaron Williams.
All right, so I'm about 10 seconds behind you too, Jake. So this is the fun of TV streams.
All right, I'll hold it off. I'll hold it right off for you, Mike. We'll get there.
All right.
I'm at the hey. So that
I got no sound, so I'm just watching Aaron Williams stand there all alone. Okay.
Well, I can say definitively they made a pick.
They have made a pick.
Oh my
There
God.
it is. There it is.
Oh God, Bills fans are going to be. Oh, they're not going to be happy about that.
They're not?
No, Bills fans are not going to be happy about that. I'm cool with it. I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with it. I'm really listen, like you said, the tape before this year, the talk before this year coming into the season, top 15 pick on tape, everything else. Had a weird year this year, but also was the focus of every single defensive scheme in the passing offense for Florida State. And Jordan Travis was awesome all year before he got hurt. Travis spread the ball around a lot because Coleman was keyed on a lot.
Can we say it's Keon Coleman, Florida State?
Yes. Keon Coleman, Florida State, 6'3", huge size, exactly what they needed at the boundary. But man, that's who they had to have wanted the whole time, I feel like. And there was no way he was going round one, in my opinion.
From the highlights, it looks like he's a pretty good contested catch kind of guy.
Oh, 100%. I'm telling you this. Keon Coleman, if this was September right now, beginning of college football season, we'd be talking about this guy being a top 10 to 15 pick in the NFL draft.
Yep.
That's how people evaluated him at the beginning of the college football season. He had transferred from Michigan State to Florida State. He was expected to be a star. This guy was one of the top 3 wide receivers in college football entering the year. Didn't have the year that people expected him to have. And then he tested out poorly in the combine, ran a 4.61, and people started thinking, oh, this guy he's not it. But he is way more athletic on tape than he is testing wise. There's a gauntlet drill, and I was just talking about this with Jake, where the one where you're going back, left, right, catching football. So it's about straight line speed and being able to catch the ball with your hands and not like going off your line. He was one of the top, I think he was the top speed guy at over 20 miles per hour. To put in comparison, Troy Franklin, who runs a 4.41, so 0.2 seconds better on the 40 than Coleman, averaged about 16 miles per hour on the same drill. 4 miles per hour slower. So, hey, Maniac, what's everybody thinking down there?
What's the vibes?
We got an indifferent South Buffalo here. They're happy about Keon Coleman. Their need for a roster position has been salivated, but they want more.
Double dip
time, yeah.
I'm hearing a double dip. I want to get this on the record right now. I know nothing, okay? Most importantly, I know nothing. And if this is wrong, I want none of the blame and all the credit. But I'm hearing Ayuk is still in play. At this point.
Hey,
you never know.
I hear people diving behind me. I'm hearing Ayuk is still in play. Love you, boys. Pay the bills. Pay your bills, people.
Pay your bills. I will say that they still do have pick 60 right there for an Ayuk play.
I don't think I feel like Ayuk would be in play in this situation. You just
No.
got an outside receiver. What I now think the Bills do, I think they get another receiver at some point. Maybe not the second round, possibly second round, maybe third round. I think the next guy you go after is your vertical threat. Now you go after your deep guy. So there's still a thought like that Troy Franklin can drop in this draft. If Troy Franklin is available in the 50s, then you start thinking, well, maybe we can get a guy like that. And then you get a vertical guy on top of a guy like Coleman who can take care of the outside.
You guys seeing that the Chargers have traded with the New England Patriots for the next pick?
Oh.
Yep, just saw that as well.
They got to be going receiver here too, I feel like.
Oh, this is the one the Bills fans wanted.
Yep,
Is this
they
Ladd?
did go receiver.
They went with Ladd. There's going to be so many Bills fans on Twitter. See, I'll put it like this.
Well, here's our first comment from Twitter from BT Sports. The Chiefs get the fastest receiver, the Bills get the slowest. I love it. I love it, BT. What were you gonna say, Mike? Sorry.
It goes to show all the stuff we talk about on Twitter in the months leading up to the draft. None of us know anything. Like, no one knows anything.
Yep.
Like, I don't want to call out anybody, but we were on this whole Ladd McConkey, Xavier Legette train for 3 months. Not us personally, but like Bills Mafia on Twitter was all about those two guys for as long as I can remember. Xavier Worthy wasn't even a consideration until a week and a half ago. And now here comes the pick. And it's Keon Coleman, who we were all talking about in January and February until we were all told not to think about him anymore.
Yep.
It's the same people that pumped up Ladd McConkey and Xavier Legette were the ones telling us not to value a guy like Keon Coleman.
Yep.
And to me, that's frustrating because I, as I said earlier in the show, there was 10 receivers in this draft I would have been perfectly content with in the top 40. There was basically 10 guys, and Keon Coleman was one of them. And I remember talking to one of my really good friends who's on the beat about Keon Coleman, and he laughed at me when we talked about Keon Coleman because he's like, "You like Keon Coleman?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude. Why wouldn't I like Keon Coleman? Like, he has a lot of good skills. He's highly regarded. He's dependable. He has size. He's an outside receiver. Like, this is all stuff the Bills need." And he's like, "Well, dude, the 4.61," and it just goes to show that we are sometimes. And this isn't just the Bills fan base. This is fans in general. We're so fickle. We let the smallest little things impact our evaluations of these players. When Brandon Beane, who's one of the best general managers in the NFL, obviously trusted everything he's seen on tape over what he did in an NFL combine in Indy in February.
We'd have got to get off the combine as far as these little details because
100%.
I mean, you could be the fastest guy, but it's not a sprint to the end zone every single play. It's a zigzag every receiver, every route, every time. And it's basically all about footwork and a little bit of leverage and getting guy to go one way and then immediately go the other way.
Yep.
I've been seeing was it Anthony from Cover One retweeting some of his all 22 footage of some of these receivers, and you see them making good moves. I made the comment that listen, if I can see a receiver juking a guy out of his shoes rather than just blowing right by him or leveraging him with size or blowing by him with the speed, then to me that is the mark of a good receiver. Is if you don't overpower a guy or blow by a guy, because at college, the differences in strength and speed between the top prospects and basically the guys who don't get drafted or even signed at all. If you're using that to your advantage, then you're not going to have that advantage in the NFL. It's like so many other traits where the guys are just as strong as you, just as fast as you, just as agile as you. If you can beat a guy with skill, like say you're a running back, if you're just hitting the hole and just going straight to daylight and not having to, zig and
Make a
zag
read,
and
yeah.
do your best Barry Sanders impression, then you may have it within you to, make guys miss and turn on a dive or whatever. But if you're not showing that on tape, then, from my point of view, how do I know that you're going to be able to make it in the NFL where you're not going to be able to run by guys and just or overpower them at some point? So when I see, receivers using their skill and using their agility to get guys to basically break break a quarterback's ankles, that to me it's the best positive on tape that you can show that, hey, you might be able to make it in the NFL. And of course, having a good pair of hands where you're making one-handed catches, stretching one way or the other, like we just saw. Now I'm blanking on who the Bills just chose because
Keon Coleman. Yeah, and he makes great contested catches, and that's a great point, Mike, because there's a lot of skill that goes into it, especially in the NFL game, and there are guys you can't get tantalized with just intangibles or just like athletic intangibles, whether it's speed or size or anything or frame or anything else. And I will say, Bunt, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, that you have to look at your wide receiver room like a basketball team almost, where you need guys that can do different things. You need your power forward that can go up, get his rebounds, and do everything else. Coleman fits a mold and fits exactly what this core needed. They had speed. They had guys that can work the middle of the field. They have guys that can work the short areas. They'd have a gadget guy that has some speed and Samuel now. They needed a big target for Josh Allen, especially in the red zone and everything else. Not that Kincaid's not going to get red zone targets or Knox won't, but Coleman fits exactly what they were missing.
He's a monster. He had 11 touchdowns this past season. He has the size. And really going forward, this shows that Brandon Beane does have a mold for what he wants in an offense, that he doesn't think you can just have three gadget players that all do the same thing. This shows that he does believe you need outside guys to do outside roles, inside slot guys to do slot roles. This is a reboot on all of the talk that you could just draft a Ladd McConkey or you can just draft any random slot person and just have them in this position. This is clear that Brandon Beane wanted his size. And I'll go a step further. Back in the day, the Bills traded for Kelvin Benjamin, and it didn't work out. But I think it shows that Brandon Beane thinks there is a quality to having a bigger mold outside receiver, a guy that can jump up and make a catch in a contested situation, a guy that you can force the ball into, make a catch. I understand a lot of people are all about separation. I think separation is huge too. I love separation guys, but separation isn't everything in the NFL, and separation in college doesn't always translate to separation in the NFL. We have to figure that just giving a guy that could be a possession guy is something that the Bills thought they needed. Who were the Bills' possession guys in recent years? You're talking about Stephon Diggs was always the go-to target. He's gone. Yep. Kincaid could be a possession guy. But getting another guy like this is not a bad thing. Now, some people will say this is a little bit of a reach at 33. Well, it depends on what the Bills do the rest of the draft. But I am not against this pick at all. And
all right, well, on the idea of him being a possession receiver, contested catch guy, I don't remember who I saw make the comment about Josh Allen, but they were talking about, Josh Allen, he doesn't throw jump balls. He throws, to use a term, piss missiles. So it's more important for a receiver to be able to create separation than to be able to contest the catch.
But you got to understand the same people that have been saying that were the people that were all about Ladd McConkey and Xavier Legette during this draft process. Many of those people, like yes, it's easy to say that because that's all Josh Allen has had his career. Josh Allen's entire career has been separators.
Yeah,
and guys that are wide open, making life easy for him. Besides early on in 2018 when he had nobody on his team. Like you think about 2018, I can't even tell you half his receivers. There were guys like Zay Jones and I don't know, was Holmes still on the team? A bunch of random guys.
So, yeah.
So 2019, you get Cole Beasley, you get John Brown. 2020, you add Stephon Diggs into the picture. You had Emmanuel Sanders for 1 year. Then you get Gabe Davis. So they wanted to give him separators because separators make life easier on young quarterbacks that are developing because you give them easy throws. And yes, like I like easy throws, but you got to question, like, out of these guys that were available, what did they provide that the Bills didn't already have? The Bills have Curtis Samuel, who already runs a sub 4.40.
Yep.
So, like, you already got a speed guy on your team there. Khalil Shakir, they have in practice every day, and we saw what he did at the end of the season. He gets separation.
Yep.
He finds open areas. He gets yards after catch. So, okay, you look at it like you already got a speed guy in Samuel, who's versatile. You can do a lot of different things with. You already got a guy like Shakir that can get open, can get the yak. Did you really need another person that fits that role on your team?
No, that's a great point.
That's kind of where I'm going at. Like, it's cool to say, like, oh, all these other guys are better than Coleman. Fine, they might be better than Coleman. But you already have two guys that fit what they do. You need versatility within your position. You don't want it's like a running back room. You don't want all of your running backs to just be quick and elusive. You want some running backs that can be powerful. So if you have a goal line situation or a 3rd and 1, you can just ram them up the middle. Like defensive tackle wise, you want one D tackle that can take on double teams, and you want another D tackle that can be a penetrator. It's the same thing with the wide receiver room. Like, you don't want 3 guys that all do the same thing. So I think it was important for them to get a little bit more, a wider, broader skill set to the room. And I don't think this is it for wide receiver. I still think, like I said, they're adding another vertical guy. So sorry, that my dog's going to start barking. But if you add a vertical guy and a Keon Coleman to a receiver room that already has Khalil Shakir and Curtis Samuel, I think you're looking at a pretty solid 1 through 4. So
I agree.
I feel better about the Bills now than I did 25 minutes ago.
Do you think they're expecting Keon Coleman to drop? Because safeties usually it's generally, I believe, accepted that you can find good ones in, say, even the 4th or 5th round. Right? Do you think they're expecting Keon Coleman to continue to drop in the 2nd round and be available at 60?
I think the thought was that Coleman was going to go soon.
Yeah. And he was number 1 on the big board coming into today for Mel Kiper, at least. So it's like he was up higher on this. I feel like Washington could have been a spot for him here. Maybe even the Patriots could have been a spot there. The next 3 teams, we got Washington, New England, Tennessee. All of them are, I think, could go receiver.
This is Chris Sims 12 minutes ago. The Bills just got one of the freaky specimens in the NFL draft. Keon Coleman has incredible route running ability. He's dangerous with the ball in his hands, and he has a chance to be the best 50-50 ball wide receiver in the NFL with his size and jumping ability.
Yeah.
And I know, like, Chris Sims, like, take everything he says with a grain of salt. Sometimes he's one to exaggerate things a little bit. But, like, that's the thing that, like, I'm talking about right here. Coleman didn't run a fast 40, but at Florida State, they often gave him the opportunity to do things with the ball in his hands, and he would make plays with the ball. Like, you can get him the ball on a screen, and he'll do stuff with it. Just because he's not the fastest guy in the world doesn't mean that he doesn't have the ability to make things happen. So you add the jump ball ability, the possession receiver ability. I think you just added another threat to your team. Some of these other guys that are quick, they're not the best against press coverage and man-to-man and some of this other stuff. So
let's talk about he had a 40 looking on up stats quick here. 45% contested catch rate in his career, 22 of 48. Whatever this stat is for Keon Coleman. 54% catch percentage for Gabe Davis. Like, that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about a guy that goes up and gets the ball replacing a guy who couldn't catch the ball if he was wide open half the time. Almost half the time, like, and that's not saying targets, whatever. There's other reasons that targets go uncaught and everything else. But if you're looking at it, and that's the way I'm looking at this, is Coleman is the Gabe Davis replacement. Gabe ran a 4.54 for the 40. Coleman ran a 4.61. Not that much. We're talking 0.07 seconds in that difference. Not much different. And we all thought of Gabe Davis as the deep threat, the vertical guy on this offense. Coleman is going to be able to go down the field and make plays down the field with Josh Allen. and he's got better hands in those scenarios than Gabe Davis did too. And I think if this guy ends up better than Gabe Davis and ends up more effective, and we saw the stats that Davis could put up with Josh Allen, if he's a better fit than that, then this is a home run pick, honestly, because Allen has made, as you mentioned, you rattled off a lot of receivers that Josh Allen has had. They've all had great great seasons with Josh Allen at quarterback. I think he's going to be able to make it work with this guy. And I think that the way that this offense is set up now, there's so many weapons all over the place that it's not like Coleman's going to be asked to carry the load. And so it's not like he's coming in here automatically taking over wide receiver one. He's not going to be wide receiver one.
Yeah, no chance. He'll probably be fourth in the team in
targets.
In targets among the wideouts and the tight ends. Like, it's going to go Kincaid 1, probably Shakir Samuel 2, 3, whatever order you want with them, and then Coleman in that situation. Maybe, and obviously James Cook is going to get a bunch too. And here's another thing: Pro Ant from Cover One. I love his input. Keon Coleman needs to develop more nuance and precision in his route running and stem work, but his size, frame, athleticism. Then he puts in parenthesis, don't let his 40 time make you think he isn't athletic, which I think is important for Bills fans to realize. Hand strength, body control, and ball winning are very intriguing. He has a play style and frame not present on the Bills roster. Also, his 2023 stats were impacted by injury and quarterback play.
Yep.
I'll just be the first one to say, I know people in Florida State, when Jordan Travis got hurt, were saying, well, Florida State doesn't deserve to make the playoffs because they lost Jordan Travis. I never thought the Florida State quarterback play was great. I always thought, even when they were putting up points, could have been much better if they had QBs from several other teams across college football.
For sure.
Injuries definitely impacted his production as well. Keon Coleman, I'll put it like this. What if you had to ask me what's the grade of this pick right now? I say a solid B to B plus. Is it an A? Am I blown away? No, not at all. I'm not blown away because I don't think they're getting a guy that's a star. I don't think they're getting a guy that's going to be a stud at the next level. But do I think this is an awful pick where they reached on somebody that's going to be a bust at the NFL level because he ran a 4.61? No, I think they got a solid player that they're pretty confident is going to be good with this team, with his role, and has the ability to develop into an above average NFL wide receiver. So I'm perfectly content right now. And
Same.
There's going to be fans that are going to say, Mike, you're crazy. We could have gotten Xavier Worthy. We could have gotten Xavier Legette. You know what? The Bills told you what they thought about Xavier Worthy and Xavier Legette. They didn't think speed was what they needed. They think that size, physicality, and the ability to bring in the ball and bring it down are the top things they looked at. Because
let me ask you guys
opportunities at speedsters, and they turned down all three of them.
Yep.
Are either of you fans at all, one way or the other, of the fade route at the goal line? Because I'm not personally. I've seen statistics, and just based on whatever others have said and personal feelings, I think it's a very iffy play to make it the goal line, even if you have a contested catch guy. So I just hope that the Bills don't start leaning on those type of plays.
It doesn't need to be
in the red zone.
It doesn't need to be fades. With the size, you can block out corners. Keon Coleman's going to be bigger than the corners he's going up against most of the time. So, like, that's where, like, this is why I always say separation isn't the most important thing in the world. Like, for some guys that have the size and body that Keon Coleman is, he can block guys out. It's like Travis Kelce ain't fast, but Travis Kelce is always wide open and he's always making plays. Why? Because he's bigger than the guys that are covering him. He's also tremendously talented. I'm not saying that Coleman's Travis Kelce, but when you have a big frame, like, guys have to reach around you to knock the ball down. Like, Coleman will be able to out physical guys. So 3rd and 5, you need 5 yards. You don't need to, like, have Coleman just beat a guy and get separation right away. Like, you can force it into him and feel confident he's going to bring it down.
Yeah.
Like, that's what the Bills, I always felt like they did need a little bit more of that. You look at the receiving group in recent years, especially last year, when it was Diggs, Gabe Davis, Shakir, who was the guy that could get them that 5 yards? Like, Stephon Diggs was always the guy that they used to depend on because of his elusiveness. But when Diggs started losing a little bit of that elusiveness, they didn't have it. And I think now with Coleman, you have a guy where you can You can force it in. Like, think about having Coleman on the field on one side, and then you have Shakir and Samuel. Samuel with his speed, Shakir with his elusiveness, Coleman with his physicality. Like, you're gonna have some difficult matchups.
Yep, that's my
And
basketball
Gate on
starting
the field,
lineup.
too. Like, you brought the size, elusiveness, and speed all on the field at one time.
Yep. I love it. I love it for exactly what you're saying, for where he fits in with the receiving core. So, Mike, before we get out of here, what do you think they're doing the rest of this time? Well, we got Partham back here, so we're gonna wrap it up here. But where we got pick 60 and pick 95 on the board. So start with you, Bunt, then Partham. If you have any guesses, where do you think they go next after this, and then I'll wrap it up. What do you think pick 60 and 95 are?
Yeah, so if you're asking me how do I think this is going to get wrapped up, I think it gets wrapped up with the Bills taking a safety in one of their next two picks. Cole Bishop out of Utah is a possibility.
Yep.
Bullard from Georgia, he's a possibility. I would expect both of those guys to be under consideration. There's a few other guys. Could Cameron Kitchens from Miami be a possibility? I think he might be somebody that they consider. I guess my whole thing is I don't know if they're going to go late second round and then go back to receiver in the third round, or will they consider double dipping at receiver again here at 60 and then take a safety at 95? If a guy like Troy Franklin drops, if one of these vertical guys drops to 60, I think Brandon Beane will have a tough decision on his mind, because if you could get one of these speedsters to go along with a Coleman and what you already have, that's scary to me. So I don't think the safeties that are in this draft are really top end guys, but
yeah, that's fair.
Late second, third, I think you're going to have some possibilities there.
I would expect them to get Cooper DeJean if he's available at 60. I wouldn't be surprised if they traded up in the second round to get him, and then see which of the remaining wide receivers drops to them at their next pick.
And Cooper is still sliding here, so we'll see what happens. They'll have to monitor that. I think if they stay at 60, I want Mason Smith. I want the big D tackle. I need one of these big guys here. And then I think they go back in the third round to one of the receivers, whoever's there. I don't know if Franklin will be there by the third round. I would doubt it, but they're, a Javon Baker or something like that in the third round. I think that they could go that way, and then maybe trading up in the fourth round tomorrow to get that safety that they want. I do think that they're addressing safety within the next 3 picks. I would be surprised if by round 4 they don't have a safety on this roster. But I do want one of the big boys. So Mason Smith is who I'm looking at 60.
Maybe I've been scared off by the Bills' recent picks at those positions, but I'm over defensive tackle and defensive ends. even on the cheap, even if you have to find a good one in the first or second rounds, I'm just over them, because I'm over trying to beat Patrick Mahomes by getting to him, because we can't.
That's fair.
We closed out one game in the regular season with Von Miller getting a sack and Patrick Mahomes, or maybe rushing him to an interception. He's not doing that in the playoffs. Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't the way that the Bengals were able to beat the Chiefs one time in the playoffs, and of course the Chiefs beat them a couple other times too, was basically dropping 8, rushing 3, and just flooding the passing lanes? It's your traditional method going all the way back to Super Bowl 25 of stopping a high-powered offense is just flood the passing lanes. Patrick Mahomes is not a guy you're going to be able to rattle, and because he's just as maneuverable and just as liable to take off and run as our own Josh Allen, you're not going to be able to bring him down that easily. So you might as well just make him frustrated, make him sit in the pocket, contain him, and just hope he makes a bad throw or tries to force something. So that's where I'm more about getting defensive help in the secondary and the back half of the passing defense.
That's fair. They do need a safety. I would really like them to address that position. Any other thoughts before you hop off here, guys?
Well, just to follow up on that, philosophically, I mean, if you're going to rotate your defensive tackles as it is, why use a high pick on somebody that's going to be on the field like 50, 60% of the time? And even if they're on the field 100% of the time, what are you going to get out of them for the whole year? 9, 10 sacks, 10 plays. That if you get a sack on first down, it's 2nd and 17. If you're trying to beat a guy like Patrick Mahomes, is he not going to be able to overcome a 2nd and 17? So it's just, where are we at, and who we're trying to get past, and what is the value in our pick. If you want to get a defensive tackle in like the 3rd or 4th round, then sure, be my guest. But I wouldn't waste a high value pick on the front. People say that football is one to the transcend to a degree. Yes, that's true. But if you want to say it's a passing lead, you want to beat a passing quarterback, I think you got to defeat him in the back end rather than the front end, unless you guys have a differing thought.
No, I like that. Those are all fair points. I mean, and especially with the way that, like you said, it's the way that they've had to attack Mahomes. It hasn't worked going after all the edge guys and everything else. So maybe it is time to try to change it up. If that's the sense, then I'm just, if it's not that, pick a receiver second here at 60 and just go add to your fastball. That's
you guys did get one thing wrong. There really is no strategy to beating Mahomes. You just have to pray and hope.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really how it works out. And because here's the fact of it, like the Chiefs are on cruise control half the time in the regular season, and in the playoffs they bring their game to another level. And what makes them even more dangerous is the luck is actually a stat. Like there's ways of defining luck, and there's things that based on things that you can't replicate to your advantage over and over again. And the Chiefs have benefited statistically from a lot of luck plays in the playoffs throughout their Super Bowl run. Their defense always steps up in the playoffs, even when they struggle in the regular season. And Mahomes has been historically clutch, and he makes plays in big moments. You really look at the difference between the Bills and the Chiefs the last 3-4 years. It comes down to the Chiefs being able to execute in those big moments in the playoffs while the Bills getting in their own way. So what do the Bills need to beat Kansas City going forward? Well, they just need to execute when it matters. And I would argue with you, Michael, I would agree with you, Mike, that really the more we keep investing on defense, the more we're just hurting our chances of really beating Kansas City going forward. Because you think about it, we've had these elite defenses for many years now, but if you're going to deal with injuries and then you're missing one of your key players, what does it benefit you even going after these defensive players anyway? He's going to light you up if you're missing one or two players on your team. Last year, you're missing 2 linebackers. You have your entire secondary in there. You have your D-line healthy, and you still couldn't do anything. So what that really shows is the year before, they were just basically missing Trey White in the 13 seconds game. They couldn't get a stop. So if you can have a defense with 4 All-Pros on it, and then you miss one player and they're soup, well, then you can't depend to just beat them defensively, because he'll exploit whatever hole you have on your unit. If you want to beat Mahomes with your defense, you need to get interior pressure. You need to get to the quarterback, get in his space, force him out of his comfort zone, and hopefully that you make a play or two in your secondary to shut them down. But that's team defense. You need it on all 3 levels to produce at a high level. And I think expecting that to happen based on draft picks is more hope than expecting. So keep getting offense. Try to outscore him. Give Josh every weapon possible. And that's the way it should have been the last 2-3 years. And that would be my one criticism of Brandon Beane over recent years, is that we really haven't given Josh enough the last couple years to really elevate this team to a Super Bowl contending level status. Like if they would have just had one more quality receiver on this team the last couple years, I think you could say maybe that would have been what they needed to get over the top and better help.
Well, here's the hoping that Keon Coleman is that receiver, and next year we're watching a playoff game and it's Keon Coleman scoring a key touchdown in the end against Kansas City and nothing else. Anything else, guys, before we go out?
I'm all good. Let's go Buffalo. Let's get a safety and let's double dip at receiver.
Now that we have a receiver in, we can finally breathe and start to, evaluate the rest of the field rather than just keep pulling our hair out. It's like get us a guy at least, and now we got at least a guy.
The tension is gone, that's for sure. Even if not everybody agrees with who it is, the tension's gone. Now we have that receiver, and I'm sure there will be some Keon Coleman jerseys getting bought over the next week. There's going to be some hype around it, so I'm excited. So thank you to both Mikes, Mike Bunt at Bunt Takes, Mike Partham, and Jake Micah here. Thank you to our sponsor, Outlet Liquor, your place to buy a case. We paid the bills. The Bills made their selection finally, and they got at least two more tonight. So stay locked on the Pay the Bills pod, Twitter, and Trainwreck Sports. Have a great night, folks. Go Bills.
Go Bills.